Hey guys, it's Eric from foundersbeta.com. I'm so excited to have the co-founders of Wisedocs with me today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Eric. Great to be
Yes,
here.
so I have Connor and Jenna from Wisedocs. So yeah, let's talk about Wisedocs and how did the idea come about?
Yeah, it's really based on my personal and professional experience. I spent 12 years in the military, and part of my career, I was a hospital administrator, working in records departments, primary care, everything that actually runs a hospital. And I seen a really interesting pattern that there's issues around claims and veterans were being delayed on moving through that process, and it was a big burden, and I was trying to
Mhm.
solve for that. And then I was pulled into the system myself. I had a short-term disability claim. It took 18 months, and I thought something has to change. Like we really
Right,
have to start looking at technology to automate this. And then on top of that, I also had a family member in a catastrophic car accident, and that took 5 years. So claims
wow,
just became something where it became apparent that it needed to be fixed. How do we help
right,
the claimant? How do we help the system just be more efficient and get better care outcomes and better
Mhm.
results? And,
Right,
and that's where I thought, how hard could this be? Oh, it's really hard. So started
right,
the
right,
business, and then we pivoted about 2 years in from a B2B, or sorry, a B2C into a
Mhm.
B2B. And I can let Jenna kind of talk about that. And she joined
Right,
as a co-founder, and Wisedocs was really born. And that's
right,
that's that's where we started to see there's so much more application and opportunity to help
right,
multiple types of claims, not just in
right,
short-term disability and VA, but it's also in casualty and workers' compensation.
right.
There's just so much work that needs to be done in this space, in this industry. But I'll turn it over to Jenna on her experience joining the company as a co-founder.
Yeah, definitely. When I came on, we were really focused on kind of taking a product to market and finding businesses that
Mhm.
had a need and a pain point and really focusing in on just that one pain point, solving it for them, and then, yeah,
Right.
been building the business since then.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess you build this based on your own experience. And how is that like reaching out to other companies and saying, "Hey, we're building this. Want to give it a try?" What was your experience like? Kind of like getting those first customers and users for the product.
Yeah, so it was really interesting, in the sense that what you think your targeted market is actually
Hmm.
isn't, and that's why you have to listen to your
Right.
your customers. So I envision that veterans would want to pay for this, have your own medical record,
Right.
help make decisions and go through the claims process faster. But in fact, it was really the clients that were facilitating and supporting those claims. So third-party assessments, IMEs, so independent medical evaluators, individual lawyers, doctors, claims professionals. and
Right.
and that's when, once we unlock that, that's really where it was the aha moment. Listen to what they need to help their business, create
Right.
the value. Don't build what you think's right, build what they actually are asking you to help them
Right.
improve efficiencies, time, just overall opportunity to accelerate. And that's really where pivoting to that and understanding it, it's a big risk, but it's also a
Right.
massive reward when you get it right. And that is product market fit. Your first $1 million in
Right.
top line revenue, that's what you're trying to validate. What and how
Right.
does it stick?
Right. And what were some of the signs of the tractions you were getting from customers? Was it like product usage? Was it like you see the impact of your work? What was that like?
Yeah, so we have a North Star where it's always looking at like total pages processed, right? So
Oh,
again, I,
okay,
I would
okay.
I would implore any early founder or even founder that's a little bit mid-level and on that acceleration, find your North Star. And that was
Right.
one of the first things that our early investors told us. Get the North Star and focus on that. Because when you
Right.
build your business, your OKRs and your processes around it, you start seeing results. And for us, every page that goes through the system is processed. It is impacting a case, a claim. And if
Right.
we do more and more and more of that, then obviously we're going up and to the right. And that's what we want to do. We want to see growth, but we want to see our clients using our system more. And
Right.
usage is key. So I think it's aligning with that, understanding what your North Star is, and then building really strong processes and fundamentals
Right.
around that.
Right on. And maybe Jenna, can you can talk about this? What was the first version of the product like? I know founders go back and see like the first version, and now they could look at it today. They're like, oh my god, like it has changed so much. So what was the first version like, and what has changed like today?
Yeah, it was a pretty rough. Um, we've definitely come a long way since then, but we, still have a long way to go. But it was very simple. Like we said, like we focused on one very specific use
Right.
case, solving one very specific problem. We weren't trying to boil the ocean. We were not trying to be everything to everyone. We were not kind of rushing features out the door. We were focusing on what is the problem we can solve and how do we solve just that problem. So, was it solving a problem? Yes. Absolutely. And I think that's so important and integral. Was it feature rich? No, but that's okay as well because we were focused
Right.
on the problem.
Right. I love that, and I think that's really important because I think sometimes startups try to be everything to everybody, right? And you can't be everyone's cup of tea, right? So you got to have a focus. You got to have your ideal customers. So yeah, that's great. But I think for founders sometimes it's challenging, right? Because you get so excited about every idea you get, and hard to focus. And what was your experience like figuring out this is it? This is what we should focus. Did you listen to your customers, or what sort of clues did you get to figure out, okay, you know what, we should just have one feature for the lounge and this is what it's going to do? What was your experience like?
Yeah, 100% listening to our customers. I think it's so easy. And I remember we used to talk about this thing called the shiny red balls, which is
Right.
like all of the things that people are asking for, but aren't, relevant
Right.
to what we build at all. And so,
Right.
yeah, I was listening to customers, getting their feedback, including them in beta products, like just showing up for your customers as much as you can. Of course,
Right.
any problem you're going to have bugs, any product you're going to have bugs, you're going to have things that break and things like that, but staying really close to your customer and knowing who your customer is, I think, is important. And we even
Right.
deal with that today. Like, it's okay for not every customer to be qualified, and I think
Right.
startups sometimes act from a place of fear. Like, I have to, every company that comes to me, every inbound lead, I've got to find a way of making it work, and it's not true.
Right.
Like, you have to really stay focused on who your customer is. Otherwise, you're going to dilute your value proposition and maybe not be useful to anyone. Or you could be a generalist, but then like you have to be very clear about what your product limitations are going to be with that approach. So, yeah, customer first for sure.
Right. And in terms of like, I guess customer requests, how do you prioritize like what features you like they request, or are you going to do, or like how do you go about that? Like,
Yeah, I think it really comes down to a really strong vision and understanding of the roadmap.
right.
And everyone has really great opinions, but does it actually align with the business, the ROI, how you're
Right.
actually deploying, your dev velocity, your product, your technology? Like, how are you building your stack? Like, what is your end state? And like, what is your intent? What are you trying
Right.
to achieve with that roadmap? And when you can get that symbiosis with a client and say, aha, the light bulb goes on, we're both on the same track, that's
Right.
a win. And as Jenna alluded to before, not every client is the perfect ICP, right? So you need to step that back and say, it might not be now, it could be later. And then in
Right.
certain cases, it might not ever be. Like we know what we know how to build and why we're building it. And I think you have to
Right.
be true to that. It's very easy with that shiny red ball, well, that could fit here and we could go into that segment and that
Right.
market and that vertical. But that's where you lose the velocity and the momentum. And what I've learned is you need to make sure you're protecting your engineering mindset with
Right.
context switching. And every time you switch and that context is lost, you lose that velocity. So I think it's always understanding the vision, the roadmap, and that alignment with the client and understanding that fit. And fit is critical.
Right on. So shifting gears to like team building. Obviously, I've seen I've seen your team, and you're building a wonderful culture. What was it like in the early days, and how did you go about like recruiting team members and really making it work? Because in the early days, it's challenging, right? You have limited resources. You got to focus on customers, but hey, you also need like more support, maybe. So, what was your experience building your team?
Yeah, I think, and I'd love to get Jenna's thoughts as she came into the business in the next year or two. And when
Hmm.
I first started it, it was really about your values. So
Right.
I lost my tribe per se when I left the military. It was a very different feeling,
Right.
and I wanted to get that back. I wanted that esprit de corps. I wanted that morale. I wanted that, like, that friendship that I had
Right.
in 12 years of serving. And that's how I started that foundational level, and then it's bringing in brilliant people like when Jenna joined, and how her look at how SaaS is built, and her experiences, and hiring around that, like, what is your
Right.
purpose and your culture, and setting that, is it allows the best talent, the best minds, the best thinking, and then you can take a step back and they help craft that. And Jenna, I'll let you contribute on that one.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Like the employer-employee relationship has to be a symbiotic relationship. It has to work both ways.
Right.
And I think especially for early stage companies, when someone's joining your organization early stage, like you need to ensure that you're developing them, delivering for them, giving them just as much as they're giving you. Because
Right.
at an early stage, like you're not going to compete with paying like the same, salaries as
Right.
Microsoft
Right.
or the
Right.
same days off as Salesforce. Like you're not going to be able to compete with that. So you have to get very, very clear on what you can offer this person and
Right.
making sure that you're hiring people that align with what you can give them and what they want from this experience. And I think that
Right.
that's super, super important. So
Right.
early on, but even now, and like as we continue to scale, there isn't a day that I don't think about like what are we doing for our employees? Like how
Wow.
are we showing up for them? And if we're asking things of them, we also have to deliver that in response. And like I think a lot of people think about joining startups, one of the things they talk about is flexibility. And so if we're asking people to be flexible, like we're not a 9 to 5, but
Right.
if
Exactly.
we're not going to be a 9 to 5, we're also saying take your appointments when you need to go to them, or go
Right.
for lunch with your friend, or sign in late tomorrow. Like you have to deliver it bi-directionally.
Hmm.
I think that's where sometimes maybe startups forget is like if you're asking more of people, which often happens in a startup, like just deliver back for your employees too. Like
Right.
absolutely show up for them just as much as they're showing up for you and aligning those values. And that's what we try and do.
Right, right on. And I think that's where magic happens, right? You have a set of motivated team members and great product market fit. And yeah, love that. So I think this is going to be obviously your favorite topic, AI. So, I think you have a lot of insights to share. So, what are your thoughts on, the role of AI and emerging technologies you're using? Obviously, you have a great pulse on this because you use it for your product. But any insights you can share about the industry, about AI, and where we might be headed? Yeah.
Yeah, and I see this as it's interesting. Like the industry's come full circle. So when we started the business, everyone said human in the loop is the wrong way to go. Human in the
Right.
loop means you don't actually have AI. That's wrong. That's the only way you can build good AI,
Hmm.
and you can make AI great. And human in the loop has this balance where it's not just about integrating the human, not from a sense of being independent, but it's a dependence on each other. So you need an
Right.
AI application that can have a feedback loop. You can understand why and how it's working, but it needs to augment and empower that human as well. And I see
Right.
that there is a really solid balance and harmony if you can find how to make that work. And I think that's what's going to make great companies and scale. Wrapping something in an LLM, just like a
Right.
wrapper or a shiny UI UX, that's not going to scale. Like you
Right.
will hit the bottleneck. Um, but I think it also has to go back to trust, and that's what we're missing in AI. I think
Right.
people are getting fatigued. Like what we're seeing is the Gardner hype cycle, trough of delusionment, right? We're not seeing the massive gains yet.
Right. That's true.
There's work still to be done, but if we can't build trust, people will not depend on this new technology. So it's
Right.
about building trust, including humans in the loop. There's oversight, there's transparency, and I think if you start thinking in that way as a framework, you build the right way. And
Right.
and I'm a big proponent of that. It has come full circle. I remember investors telling me, I'm not investing because it's not real AI, because you have human in the loop. Well,
Got it.
now everyone's telling
Right.
everyone that if you don't have human in the loop, we're not using your product. So it's a
Right.
really interesting kind of juxtaposition here. It's really come full swing. But
Right.
I don't know what you've seen, Jenna, as well.
Right.
No, I fully agree. I think that for any founder, you have to understand like how you're using AI and what is the purpose of it. it's perfectly acceptable to be building a company that isn't an AI company. Like
Exactly.
don't have AI just for the sake of having AI. Like everything comes back to delivering business outcomes for your customers. That is the
Right.
only fundamental thing you need to do as a startup, is deliver for your customers and solve a problem. Do not try
Right.
and like get on the bandwagon just because it looks cool or sounds cool. And for
Right.
us, we were at a really interesting kind of opportunity. And
Right.
for us, like using AI means we can deliver better outcomes for our customers. It means we can help them fix their problems quicker. And so that was great. Like we're an
Right.
example of a company where using AI helps us be more efficient for our
Right.
customers.
Right on.
But it doesn't mean it has to exist everywhere for everyone. If there's no business outcome tied to it, then put it on a shelf. You don't need to talk
Right.
about it. You don't need to
Right
use
on.
it.
So true. So talk about the role of the human. You talked about this a little bit, but where do you see humans play a role in AI?
Yeah, I think, I've spoke on it on a couple of webinars and sessions. It's augmenting the human. I get asked a lot when I go down to the conferences, specifically around claims. Will it replace my job?
Right.
Yes, there will be redundancies, but what's going to happen is essentially you're allocating higher value tasks to your team, and
Right.
that is where you're empowering them. It's not an elimination. And I think if we start looking at it as an augmentation, that's where you have like a force multiplier. So you
Right.
can literally do more with your existing team than, like, you can look at all of these like new technologies that have been like Cursor. Engineers are actually starting to skyrocket how much they can have output on their code. There's just so much automation that can happen for very mundane tasks, and that's the cool thing with AI, where it's eliminating the back office, the laborious, hateful work of doing just data entry. That's, I think, where we're going to see massive lifts, but we're always going to need a human oversight, and that's my personal belief. I could be wrong, and we'll on this recording we'll come back maybe in a couple of years, and it'll prove me right or it'll prove me wrong. But I really
Right.
believe that it's that balance, right?
Right, right. We should definitely have a sequel. So yes, Jenna. Any thoughts on your end, like about the humans in the whole development of AI world we living?
No, I just think that we're starting to see a lot more government agencies and policies and Gen AI governance coming from enterprises, which is needed. They're starting to
Right,
catch
right.
up. I love those conversations because I think they're important. And I think that
Mhm.
you need to show that you have a level of credibility and human oversight and
Right,
responsibility with the AI and how you're using it. And we've seen a lot of companies be very irresponsible with how
right,
they use
right,
AI.
right,
So I think it's a role that always needs to exist. And especially in an industry like ours, where you're in a highly regulated industry, humans are always going to have to be a part of it.
right, right, right on. So speaking of shifting gears to fundraising, fundraising, generally speaking, very challenging in Canada. I'm sure you both can relate. But what was your experience raising early funds for Wisedocs?
Yeah, so we raised from some amazing Canadian investors, and so grateful for that. And now on our cap table, we have both US investors as well as Canadian investors.
Mhm.
I think it sucks that we have to say it's hard for Canadian
Right,
companies. Like
right,
it's just like what a position to be in, because I think there's
right.
so many incredible entrepreneurs coming out of Canada that want to build incredible companies and want to go and kind of deliver these products around the world. So we had a good experience. I definitely think Canadian investors probably come across a little bit more conservative
True.
compared to some US investors, but I don't think that's a Canadian investor issue. I think that's a Canadian society issue.
Right. More
Um,
culturally. Right, right.
it 100% is a
Not
cultural
taking
thing. So
risks. Right. Yeah.
yeah, and so I think it's unfair to say that Canadian investors are not like really pushing the fold. I think they are doing as much as they can within the environment that is the
Right,
Canadian culture, and I
right,
think that reflects from us and a lot of businesses we know. You build these incredible Canadian companies with Canadian product and technology teams, and find it very hard to sell to Canadian customers
right.
because
So true.
they move very slowly. They are not innovating quickly. And then we go down to the US, like 90% of our customer base are US customers. We'd
Wow.
love to support more Canadian customers, but they just don't seem ready for
Right,
innovation, or they don't seem ready to kind of actually work closely side by side with these Canadian startups and actually innovate on things. And that sucks too. So investor and raising rounds, there's some incredible investors in Canada.
Hmm.
I think don't pass them off
Right,
because
right,
they're Canadian. They can be helpful. They're kind. They're understand it. They'll connect you with great resources.
right,
But we found, raising from the US and Canada and having customers in the US and Canada has been a really, really nice compliment for us.
right
And,
on.
and I think to add to that is just showing up as a business partner.
Right,
If they're more conservative and the expectations are kind of set, show up to what they're looking for.
right,
Don't go in with a half-baked balance sheet. You don't know your numbers, you don't know your metrics, your deck isn't prepared.
right.
Actually show up. Be highly scrutinous on what you're providing, because as you go through that due diligence process,
Mhm.
they're going to find it, and it's about building trust. And it's
Right,
okay if things aren't perfect, but just be transparent, understand why, and go through that process with them. And that builds a great relationship that's going to carry on for years. The one mistake I made in the early days is, oh,
hmm,
we're going to build this company in a couple of years. It's a startup dream. No, when you're getting an investor, you're on that for the next 10 years.
right,
Expect the next 10 years that person is your business partner. So A, you have to like them. B, you got to make sure that you're aligned on what the goal and the vision of the business is. And then the final component C is, how are you winning together? And what does that
right,
communication look like? So I think setting that up right out of the gate, regardless if they're conservative or they're not, it's
right,
it's it's expectation. And I think when you
right.
get that right, yeah, you've got an amazing partnership for the long term. And they're always going to be there for you when you need them.
Right, right on. Great advice. So I always ask the founders on the show. Obviously, you gave out a lot of insight. Any advice that you would give a upcoming founder about building a great company in Canada or outside? Yeah.
Just focus on your customers, listen to your customers, be customer centric, and genuinely care about what your customers have to say. I think, when we think about product market fit, I think a lot of founders get carried away with like, I have this amazing idea. I'm going to be the Uber for this. I'm going to be the
Right.
Instacart for that. And like get kind of caught up in the hype of building a company, or like
Hmm.
Connor said, like the dream of being an entrepreneur. And none
Right.
of that
Right.
matters if you're not solving a real problem for someone. Like, you have to actually be solving a problem for someone, and they have to care about it enough to pay you for it. If
Exactly.
you have, potential customers putting their hand up and saying like, we'll try this for free, like we'll do a proof of concept with you, but we're not going to pay
Right.
for it. It might be something we're interested in. That's not enough. You have
Right
to
on.
really honestly have a problem that people are willing to pay for.
Right.
um, you can do a free POC once in a while if you need to, but like, you have to have a problem that people are willing to pay for, and then you double down and capitalize on that.
100%.
So that's like
100%.
one. And then the second one is like, care about your people. Like Connor
Right.
said, like the 10-year relationship with investors, we like to think about our employee relationship as the same. Like,
Right.
the people that join you, especially early stage, like they're taking a bet on you, and you have to like nourish that and hold it
Right. Right.
closely and
Right.
take care of it.
Right.
And so I think doing whatever you can to invest in your people, bringing people together, celebrating wins. We try and celebrate wins all the time,
Right.
and do that, because those are the things that are going to motivate people when you go through kind of a rough patch or a harder period.
Great. Yeah. So I guess this is a really exciting question. What's next with Wisedocs? Anything you like to share with our community? Anything exciting going on? Maybe feature release you can talk about, or something working that you may be able to share?
Yeah, I think where I'm really excited is our machine learning team. We've really built and expanded that, and even the PNT, like all of the product technology, machine learning engineers. We're really at this precipice in the next quarter, launching a new product that is going to game change a segment of the industry. I can't give too much right now,
Right.
but
Right.
we'll keep an eye out for it. But I really am passionate about their passion, what they're doing, how they're thinking, how we're moving in this industry.
Right.
It's an ability to scale, and I always say what I'm excited about. It's not being a unicorn; it's being a centaur. And
Right.
I want really strong 100 million top line repeatable revenue. Let's go get it.
Right.
Not just a valuation. And it's the team, as Jenna alluded to, that helps you get there. And it's what you put into them, they'll get back to you tenfold. So I think there's a lot coming out. I can't give too many cliffhangers,
Right.
but yeah, the
Right.
the models and some of the ways we're looking at solving some very unique strategies are going to unfold. And I can't wait to share the press release.
Oh, absolutely. We're definitely looking forward to, as you scale Wisedocs, and yeah, looking forward to your development and growth, and love to see it. So yeah, I'd like to thank you both for taking the time today and sharing your story with Founders Beta and our community. Thanks again, and looking forward to your development.
Thanks, Eric.